Washing It All Away, Tears of Tomorrow, an Adrienette OneShot fanfiction. The sun is too bright. It's shining through the windows in a way that is burning his eyes. Adrien groans and rolls over, shoving his face into the pillow. He's been trying to sleep for hours, and he's not sure if he's been drifting in and out of slumber or just staying awake in an everlasting nightmare. His head is hurting, and not from a headache. Rather, it's a dull feeling he's never been able to fully understand. He has no idea what time it is, and would just love to stay in bed for the rest of the day. Or 2. Or 3. Or a week. Hey, there's a soft voice that floats into his ears, and if it was anyone else, he would have just buried his head into the covers even further, wanting to drown in nothing and pretend the whole world doesn't even exist. Have you been able to sleep? The voice asked again. Adrien doesn't say anything, but he attempts to shake his head, and God, it feels like lifting weights. He's exhausted again. Sleep. All he wants is sleep. Why won't sleep come? Not a good day? The voice grows softer, if that's even possible. Tired, is all he manages to say. There are tears stinging at his eyes that threaten to burst out. He uses the rest of the energy in his body to fight them back. Not that it even matters when his face is buried into the pillow. Sleep. There's a little chuckle and a weight down next to him. Adrien moves closer and hugs as tight as possible. He doesn't want to let go of the warmth because his entire being feels cold and empty. There's something inside of him that feels completely empty and cold. Light touches graze across his forehead. It's comforting. Do you want to sleep today? Or is it okay if we go somewhere? We can leave the house. Alright, how about dinner after you've had time to rest? It's not going to be too busy tonight. He shrugs, though it's kind of hard to tell when he's almost mushed into the blankets and covers. He hears a sweet chuckle, and it's lifting enough that he can raise his head out of the white fluff. I'll make reservations. Today's an easy day, luckily. Adrien just barely gets his eyes open and sighs in relief when he sees the black hair. She is the best person he's ever met, and better than he could ever be. She's more understanding than anyone else, and he wonders every day why she puts up with him when he's like this. It's hard, but he forces a smile onto his lips. Just for her. Hello. It's a weak voice, but it's sincere. Good morning, she laughs as she brushes through his tufts of hair. It's no doubt tangled and a little oily, so he can't imagine it's very soft right now. Well, just nearly good morning. It's 11:38, she tells him. He sighs. I couldn't sleep, he mumbles, even though it's obvious. She swipes her fingertips under his eyes, where there are probably dark, swollen circles. Her face twists into a frown, and honestly, it makes him want to cry. I tried, though, he says, wanting to make the frown go away. Her features are too pretty to be distorted by sadness. Sometimes, she's too pretty to be distorted by his sadness. Then I'm proud of you, she says, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Adrien hums and nuzzles into her side, and it makes her laugh, that light silver bell sound that he just loves so much. He has no idea how long they lay there, but eventually she has to get out of bed, and he misses her warmth. He is still cold enough, but she's brought him enough strength to unwind his tangled limbs from the covers and stand on his own 2 feet. They feel weak, but they are working, and his therapist says his efforts aren't fruitless. He trudges to the kitchen where he smells bitter coffee and sweet cream in the air. His green eyes catch onto the bowl of strawberries on the table, and she's sitting on the other side with a bowl of cereal, talking on the phone with that customer service voice that he just loves teasing her about. Hi! Yes. I would like to make a reservation for 6:45 tonight. A table for two, please. Put it under Marinette dupain-cheng. All right. Thank you. Goodbye. I'm surprised they aren't full. I feel like every other time we try to make a reservation, they're totally blocked. Adrien commented idly as he eats a berry. They are shockingly sweet, especially for the season, and he knows that's by design. Strong flavors tend to wake him up from a daze, and Marinette's brilliant enough to do it so without asking him if he wants it. Marinette playfully rolls her eyes. That's because everyone else wants to go out on a Saturday too, she points out. Adrien grins and shrugs. That could be why. That is why. Maybe. He's being cheeky, and he knows it. He knows that she's going to scowl at him for being too chat noir-like, just like every other time that he does this. She sticks her tongue out at him and leaves to put her bowl in the dishwasher. How on earth does a human still look so perfect when they're being childish? Only Marinette could figure out that secret. Are you up for anything other than dinner? She asks behind her shoulder. Adrien thinks for a second. He hesitates. Usually, when he wants to ask this, he'll hesitate. Marinette can already guess what his suggestion is, but she allows him space to actually say it. Instead of rushing him, she turns around and hugs him around his waist, looking at him with encouraging eyes. Adrien takes a deep breath. It has always been hard for him to ask for what he wants after a lifetime of being mercilessly controlled by his only parental figure. I wanted to maybe visit my mom after dinner. If we have the time for it, he adds quickly, going red from embarrassment. Of course we can, Marinette says gently. She leans her head on his chest, over his heart. It's not always about whether we have time or not. It's also about whether you want to or not. I'm not going to tell you no. You have wants too, she tells him. Adrien knows that. He's heard that speech from at least a dozen different people, and she relays it to him at least 4 times a month. But it doesn't change how hard it is for him to ask for something without a fallback or a begging reason. He's still not used to being free after being chained up. Luckily, Marinette understands, and Marinette adapts. And she's patient as he works through it. Say it again, but without the last part, Marinette says, a hint of amusement in her eyes because she just knows how red he can get when trying to get requests out. He takes a deep breath as if he's about to blow out birthday candles. Can we visit my mother after dinner? Of course. Afternoon is when the temperature begins to get hot and sweaty and more people are trying to get out of the sun and into a house. However, as bright and irritating as the sun can be when he's waking up from a nightmare of a night's sleep, it can also make him feel just a bit better when he's walking in it with Marinette attached to his hand. There's some kids in the park. A little wistful side of him can't wait to have a tiny human. There's also another part of him that's bitter over his lost childhood, but he tries not to feed that. At least not now. He can be bitter later. It's fairly hot today, Marinette hums as she swings her arms. It's making her arms go up much higher than his because his limbs are long, and she's short. He chuckles a bit at that, and she scowls at him in retaliation. I'm glad you decided to walk today. I'm glad you decided to walk there today. Some sunlight might be good for you. You've been so pale your whole life, Marinette teases. It's Adrien's turn to scowl back because she brought up his modeling days. Why people fell in love with some sickly, pale, blonde kid, he has no idea. There are days that he goes back to old magazines and he swears he sees a ghost on the front page where Marinette claims to see the love of her life. His skin isn't old or anything. It's still beautifully youthful from the lack of sun that he had as a child, but dear Lord, he looks as dead on the outside as he feels now on the inside. It's best that he goes on walks with Marinette, or goes to shoot hoops, at least once a week. He has a slight tan now. He sees it when he goes to shower, and there's a funny faint tan line on his skin that he's never really seen before. And his hair is less golden, and even lighter than it had been as a child from the sun bleaching. He doesn't exactly look like the teen model Adrien Agreste, who was sad and lonely and totally trapped in a life that he couldn't escape from, and he's honestly overjoyed by that. They wanted the supernatural look. Can't blame me, he jokes. Yes, I know, and it sold millions of copies. A fair 100 were probably mine and still in my parents' basement. That makes it sound like you stalked me. And then, in some weird Stockholm situation, you made me fall in love with you, Adrien teases. Marinette stops walking and looks at him with deadpan eyes. You caught me, she sighs, but there's a twitch of a smile. Adrien shrugs, pulling her along. I'm not mad about it. She squints at him. That's a symptom of Stockholm. Then count me infected. That's not how it works. Marinette all but pushes him through the doors of his therapy center. Go get fixed, she teases him with a smile. He grabs her hands and kisses her knuckles discreetly. Your wish is my command, milady. He's only been going to therapy for a little under a year. It had been scary to start, but Marinette encouraged him to get better. Their lives weren't the definition of normal, much less his. Seeing a counselor and getting a diagnosis had been so relieving and helped him let go of his past traumas. It helped him a lot, and he's learning to be okay, even if it's been years since he last saw his father or fought in Akuma. His therapist is kind and helpful and allows him to talk and ramble for as long as he needs to before getting to the real root of the problem. Usually he can say more, but today he's tired and the words are slurring and his eyes are drooping. It's all right to be tired. Your body is responding accordingly, his therapist says. Adrien sighs. I still can't sleep, though. I'm exhausted and I can't sleep, and I think even if I could, I wouldn't feel any less tired. It's like I'm tired of life itself. Like I need a break and sleeping isn't enough. Adrien buries his head in his hands. Honestly, therapy wears him out, and now he wants to sleep even more than before. I'm just so tired. I just feel like... He pauses, nervous to express his opinion. Nervous to express negative emotion and discomfort. Previously, his therapist called this a trauma response for being more or less punished for doing or asking for anything his father didn't totally agree with, therefore making him fearful of saying something that could be less than unanimous. You may continue. Adrien talks, and he feels the weight lift from his chest. It doesn't do anything to make him feel any less exhausted, but he doesn't feel guilty like he used to, and he'd like to say that's an improvement. When Adrien gets home, he naps for who knows how many hours. The second time he wakes today, there isn't a harsh stream of light in his eyes, but there is warmth. Marinette's curled up in the bed with him. Furthermore, his head is resting on her stomach, and her hands are running through his hair soothingly. His eyes squint open. Her arms are in his vision, and she's reading a book as she waits for him to wake up, not knowing that he already has. For the first time today, a gentle smile brushes over his face. He's still tired, don't get that wrong, but Marinette's always worth the effort to smile. Her eyes are focused like how they used to be when fighting Akumas, and her lips are slightly apart in a pout. She's beautiful, especially when she doesn't even realize that he's noticing. It's only when he shifts when she looks down and sees that he's awake. Hi. Her voice is gentle and barely audible. Are you ready to go to dinner? He doesn't say anything, but he nods. It's a quiet affair, getting ready to go out. Adrien still has to blink sleep away from his eyes. Marinette's going around finding hats and gloves for them. He goes to wait by the door as Marinette rushes to him and folds a scarf around his neck. It's warm against his skin, and he looks at her with weak eyes. She only smiles slightly at him wordlessly. Did you make this? Did you make this? Adrien asks. Yeah, she blushes, and she looks adorable. It's warm, he hums, and it's warm enough to keep the chill away that came from the rain when they go outside and head towards the restaurant. Or maybe it's just Marinette's hand in him and the fact that he is so utterly in love with her that it just makes all of the cold go away. He may not be okay for now. He may not be okay for a while, but Marinette is here, and that makes everything else